10 fantasy books I love most in the entire universe. Let's begin. Hey, it's Maya, and in this video I'll be sharing with you my top 10 fantasy books that I've read up until this point. The reason I'm making this video is because fantasy is one of my favorite genres, and I've realized that I'm beginning to kind of diverge into more adult fantasy books, so I've thought about making this video to kind of record all of the fantasy books that I love up until this point. After a few years I'll make another list maybe to see how my reading taste has changed. Besides, I always find escape and home in fantasy worlds, so I thought I'd share with you books that offered me that beautiful feeling when I was reading them. So let's get going into the list. I'll be starting with my least favorite and going up to my most favorite, or the favorite fantasy book. First one is the number 10, and it's King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. Now this book is number 10 because only the first book of the trilogy is out, so I don't know whether the second and the third book will kind of ruin the first book for me, but the first book was pretty solid beginning to a new fantasy series or trilogy of Leigh Bardugo's. If you don't know, she also wrote Six of Crows and Shadow and Bone trilogy. In King of Scars we are following characters that appeared in Leigh Bardugo's other trilogies and duologies. King of Scars is on this list because the characters are so well done, and the relationship between the characters, the dynamics are filled with suspense and potential, and I love reading about this. But not only that, everything was nicely packaged with the plot and where it was going. I liked it a lot, especially following Nina and hoping that she'll finally get her happy ending. And of course about Nikolai, who is the King of Scars, his story, his backstory. I think Leigh Bardugo is definitely the queen of backstories and tragic characters. This is why I love her works so much. Next up we have Circe, written by Madeline Miller. This is a myth retelling about Circe, the first witch. Now this book is a slower paced book. It's about Circe, who has been banished to this island, I forgot the name, but there she meets a lot of other heroes and villains from other myths, so very famous names that we've all heard in Odyssey, for example, and other myths. This book is about Circe, of course, about how she grows as a character, how she learns her magics, and how she becomes the witch that we all know her to be. It's also about her just introspection and train of thoughts, and how flawed in reality she is, and what she has to do to survive. Madeline Miller is just a queen of writing. Her sentences aren't long and overdrawn. Everything that she wants to portray, she portrays in a succinct way, and this is why Circe is on this list, because it is exquisite, and Circe as a character is very flawed, but overall worthy of your time. Another one written by Leigh Bardugo is Crooked Kingdom. It's the second book in the duology Six of Crows. The first book, when I read it, I thought it was okay, I gave it 3 stars. The second book, where all of the flashbacks and the backstories are revealed, is the book for me. It's tragic, it's plot twisty, it's got everything, and reading the second book I overall give this duology almost 5 stars, if not 5 stars. At times when I see a good mood board on Tumblr I'm like, I love this. If you don't know, Six of Crows is about these bands of misfits and thieves and murderers kind of coming together from all over the world and going on an impossible heist. Now this band of misfits is led by Cas Brecker. He's like a 17-year-old boy who's tragic and sociopathic and just the character that I love to follow around. I love sociopaths as characters. I love characters who are more analytical, less emotional. Cas Brecker, emotions 0%. Kind of, you'll see, like, just trust me if you haven't read it already. You probably have, but if you haven't, this book is phenomenal. It does happen in this magical world that's inspired by Russian culture as well as other of Leigh Bardugo's works, and I have heard from Russian readers that they are pretty annoyed with the world because Leigh Bardugo could have done more research about this world, and I do agree. This book also has strong female characters and queer characters as well, so it's definitely worth your time. Another famous one is A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin. It's the second book in A Song of Ice and Fire. A Clash of Kings is definitely better than the Game of Thrones for me, but I have not read the third, fourth and fifth book yet because the series is not finished, so I don't want to get more into it. But the second book in the series is definitely great. It's got great characters, everything is so detailed and interesting. Jon Snow is so witty and sassy, and I love him in the books. In the TV show not so much, but in the books he's great. Arya, my favorite character. Tyrion, oh my god. The only thing that I really find annoying is Khaleesi's chapters in the desert. They're so boring, and George R.R. Martin's writing is dry, or on the dry side. So when I'm reading about Khaleesi where nothing is happening, I'm noticing this writing and how it drags. So I'm just like, let's just get over this, let's just go to another Tyrion chapter, okay? Can we do that, please? And, you know, the plot twist, the slow, suspenseful build-up to that one thing that happens at the end of every book. We all know this if we watch the TV show, but the book's definitely better than the TV show. Next up we have an urban fantasy, which is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. It's an adult urban fantasy that is following this guy who's just been released from prison and then contacted by God to help him win the upcoming war between gods. And yes, it's as strange as this sounds, this is the book. It's strange, it's got plot twists, it's got emotional, tragic moments. The main character is tragic, his story is definitely sad, and the gods are so quirky, other characters very, very, well, strange, and, you know, Neil Gaiman-esque. I don't really like his children's book. Sandman was okay, nothing special for me. American Gods is definitely the only book that I actually really like and love from Neil Gaiman. How we're coming to this war between gods, how the soldiers, other gods, are contacted and like asked for help. Everything, you know, suspense, mystery in this book, it is just page turning. Yes, the ending is kind of disappointing, but the ending is only like a small fraction of the whole book, and the whole book is definitely worth it. Following up we have Nevernight by Jay Kristoff, about a girl whose family is murdered, so she joins an assassin school in order to learn to be an assassin and act her revenge. And this is an adult fantasy. The narration is really special in this one. I really liked it. It was different than everything else. The narrator himself is kind of like a character himself, and he is telling us, the readers, the story of Mia Corvair, which is our protagonist. And this sounds like you would be kind of distant from Mia, but in reality the narration is done in such a way that you are feeling really close to the protagonist, you really care about what she's going through. And I think why I love this book so much is because Mia is such a psychopath, and she or sociopath, and she is also one of those characters that's tragic, that lacks emotions, and really is analytical and strategic. This is one of those books where there's no line. You know how when you read books, some books you know where the line is and which line they will not cross? This book has no line. This book will cross the lines. This book will erase the lines. There are no lines in this book. Okay, I will stop with the lines, but just know that Nevernight is very, not perfect, but very, very great. Actually, you know what? I will say it's perfect. Next we have a trilogy, a fantasy trilogy that I've read 2 books out of 3, so here it is at almost the top of my list. It's The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. Now, this book is just freaking amazing. We're following Jude, our human protagonist, in the fairyland, and she's trying to gain power and recognition, and she's a strategic, sociopathic, yes, again, love sociopaths, person who is just trying to get to the bigger standing in her world, in this fairy world. Hello, welcome to my phone. My battery died on my camera, so let's get going. We're almost there. Okay, so The Cruel Prince is just cruel. Cruel to my emotions, cruel to my heart. It's so good. It's so good. So Jude, I love her journey. I love how she just gets what she wants. It's a slower book. It's more introspective, especially the first one. I loved it. I love seeing Jude, what's behind her curtains. I haven't read the last book yet, but I want to say that the first 2 are impeccable. Next book is a magical realism, which is a subgenre of fantasy, so I'm including it here also because these books are very important to me, and it's The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater. Maggie Stiefvater is just an author that I cannot objectively think about, because subjectively I love her and everything she writes, it gets me in the heart. And The Raven Cycle is one of those books where I'm completely subjective about it, because there's a huge fandom. There's so many graphics and mood boards and playlists made of these characters and the world and everything, that I just love it the more I see all of this content. Her characters are bigger than all of her words and worlds, and bigger than everything. So I'm here for the characters. You can do whatever you want with them, Maggie Stiefvater. I appreciate you and I respect you. Now we have a graphic novel, which is Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto. It's a Japanese graphic novel, in other words manga, and I've read it in high school and it's still to this day my favorite manga ever. It's just so unique. It is so original and really the artwork is so beautiful as well. So this book is about Naruto, a boy who's been possessed by a demon, and all he wants is recognition from his peers and also to become a Hokage of his village. Now this is just a one-liner what this manga is about. It's got so many volumes and it is so much bigger than that. The plot twists in this, the world building, the magic system, but especially the plot twist, like, I will not spoil, but if you've read it, do you know that one scene with the brother when he says why he did the thing that he did? I have emotions because this is the hugest, biggest plot twist I've ever encountered in fiction up until this point in my life. Lay back and be ready to cry. Be ready to feel. Now we've come to the book, the trilogy that I've actually finished, and it is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin, the best, the most wonderful fantasy trilogy, series, whatever, that exists in this universe. Phenomenal world building, phenomenal characters, strong female characters, polyamorous relationship, diversity. The 5th season, the idea behind it, the metaphor that the apocalypse is coming, as is coming in our real world because we're not taking care of our earth. This book, many feelings. I will definitely reread it soon. So to finish this off, just want to say one last thing about these books. They are tragic. They're so freaking tragic, and things happen and people die, and I've cried so much reading this. It was a ride. Alright, that is it. Please like this video if you liked my list and subscribe to my channel if you wish to do so. And now I have one last question for you. What is the one thing by which you find your favorite fantasy book? Please leave your replies in the comment section down below, and cheers!